I was 12 years old when my house caught fire. It was evening in the autumn, and the day was settling into the night. My mom and dad were relaxing downstairs. My little brother and I were about to watch a movie together when we heard the explosion from the basement. As a family, we ran from the house, and by some twist of fate or miracle, we were unscathed. Multiple fire departments responded as the flames erupted in my childhood home. That moment changed everything. As my family fled from our home that night, we went across the street to our neighbor's house. They welcomed us in and gave us refuge. As the community around us heard the news, and as we looked across to the blackened shell of our house, long after the flames had been extinguished, something else began to happen. People stopped by with food, with extra toothbrushes, with pairs of shoes, a lended jacket from a daughter or a son about our age. Suddenly thrust out of our physical house, neighbors and strangers alike came to support us with the bits and pieces of home they knew to give. Some of us revisited our sense of home this Thanksgiving and what it means to reconnect with where we came from and some of the meaningful people in our lives. For some of us, this meant spending time around a dinner table with loved ones, held in warmth and light. For others of us, this may have meant spending the day alone, by chance or by choice, and having that sense of light changing, a contrast, spotlighting the difference between togetherness and absence. Our modern reading for today describes the ways in which we are all homeless, yet seeking home. Some of us felt this sense of wandering and lingering this past week in revisiting a time of year that can be difficult for many of us. Home is a complicated place. For our queer siblings, home is a complicated place. Many have encountered the realities of deep othering and ostracization when the families who were supposed to love them pushed them away because of who they are. For our First Nations siblings whose families and lives predated colonization, home is complicated, as they bore witness to the senseless and brutal means by which their beloved were forcibly removed from these lands, decimated by disease, stripped of all they had, and shunted to ever-shrinking pockets of the places they were allowed to reside. in a systematic effort that can be called nothing less than genocide. First Nations peoples bear the stories of immense destruction and deep loss of home. Our Black siblings, too, hold a complicated history of home. In the years following the first slave ships, which sailed to the eastern shores of this country in 1619, an estimated 400 million human beings were maimed, tortured, and ripped from their families and their homelands. These stories are inextricably woven into the fabric of what it means to live in a country deeply divided, and in a time, even now, where the structural indifference to humanity, in lack of access to healthcare, food, and housing, still rips us from each other. We have so much to learn from these stories. Within them lies a message of something more. The beauty and strength of building home anew, even after the home we thought we knew has been taken from us or destroyed. For our queer, non-binary, and other siblings, the indigenous peoples of this land, those from Africa and parts of the world where they were torn away, and for those among us who are still somehow searching too. Home is a place we yearn for. In our ancient reading for today, we met Rumi, a 13th century Islamic scholar, Sufi mystic, and poet. Rumi's imagery of a guest house is a poignant one in his own story, for he too had lost a sense of home. When the Mongol hordes invaded, Rumi and his family fled from their homelands with hundreds of others. They were homeless, yet seeking home. Far away from everything he had ever known, Rumi, his family, and his people lived in caravans, ever mobile and ever searching for safety and rest. Though in this journey they were in motion from place to place, the sense of home in community sustained them, giving resonance to the nomadic impermanence and the seeking of asylum. Rumi reminds us that in our lives, we can become the story of home. Like a guest house, we are transient travelers in this journey of life, meeting in the guest houses of ourselves and each other, every moment a new arrival. Rumi reminds us that we wander even in the midst of darkness, and in our encountering of each other, to invite all in. Rumi knew that the guest house was home because he was always giving and receiving to those along the journey. We are told that home is supposed to look like a joyful Thanksgiving meal and a happy family. For some of us, that is true. For others of us, it can be a more painful place and process. And yet, home is somehow something more. Home can come to us in many ways. A guest house in the midst of travel, a chosen family when connection to our heritage has been lost, a toothbrush after disaster. When we are in need, home is in the act of giving. Home is the pieces that strangers help us to find, the bits of comfort in the midst of brokenness. When we are wounded, home understands our pain, witnesses it, and heals it. When we are at our breaking point from utter exhaustion and cannot draw upon ourselves to give anything more than we already have, home is the grace of surrender and of being supported by those who see us in it. When our own families of origin reject us, home is in our chosen families and in the light of belonging. Home sees us for who we are and loves us anyway. Home is in this faith community and in our congregational life together, the community that draws us in, embraces us, and sustains us. During this time of year, especially as the nights grow longer and the days grow colder, let our hearts be guest houses for those who do not have homes. Let us hold those abroad whose homes have been destroyed through the ravages of war. Let us love our neighbors, sharing the precious parts of our humanity in togetherness. And let us never hesitate to give freely those sacred pieces of ourselves to a stranger in need. Home is this community, again and again, lifting our joys and our sorrows, opening its doors wide.